Today I'm using the Oak Tree brand of balloons. They're a UK brand, not one I've used before, and I'm really looking forward to giving them a try. So I'm just going to open up the package. The colour's nice. I do like the fact that you can really easily see the colour that you're getting through the packaging. I'll just open that up. Okay, it has got a CE marking on it. And let's inflate. So at the point where you're not far off fully inflated, I start to inflate much more slowly because you can easily burst a foil balloon by overinflating. Okay? And one of the ways to test whether your balloon is correctly inflated is it should feel, quite firm but not bulging, and you should be able to just kind of walk your fingers along the seam of the balloon like that, and it kind of bounces back. Okay, so far so good. I like the look of these Oak Tree balloons. That's a nice rose gold colour. It was easy to inflate. There were no problems at all getting the pump into the valve, no having to try and unseal the valve. So yes, I'm very happy so far. So I always start by inflating my 4 balloons first. I bag them, put them to one side, and by the time I need them, I will know whether there are any problems with that balloon. Take your 11-inch rounds, and I'm going to double stuff the first layer. And I do this just to give the display just a little bit of extra durability. It just makes that first base layer a little bit sturdier. If I do this when the displays are going to be placed on a floor. Okay, and I'm going to inflate these to 9 inches. So when you've sized one, just put a twist in the neck, and that just traps the air. And then just put a twist in that neck, okay? And then what you want to do is just pass the necks over one another, wrap around, take hold of the inner nozzles, and so grasp hold of those. Take hold of the inner nozzles and tie those together just once. Okay, round off slightly and make another one of these. Take your 2 duplets, place one over the other and wrap the balloons around one another a couple of times, and that's going to lock them in position. Okay. And we're going to want another cluster, but sized to 7 inches. Take one of the necks from your bottom cluster, take your smaller cluster, place it on top so that this balloon sits in between the 2 bottom balloons. Pull that neck through and then just wrap around the top layer of balloons. Okay. If you want to, take a neck from this layer and pull through into the base and just wrap around those bottom balloons. Okay. There's your base made out of 2 clusters of 4. Take a large weight, I'm using a sand weight, and pull that neck right through the centre of both layers and wrap that neck around that top layer. So that's pulling everything together as well. Okay, now you've got a really sturdy base. We want to tie this valve up neatly. Take a 260, squeeze hold of the tip and run the balloon through your fingers, and when you get to the nozzle end, just tie a knot so you end up with this flat ribbon. And this technique that I'm going to show you applies whether you're using a 260 to tie up your foil valve or whether you're using curling ribbon. So take the valve and just position that 260 towards the end of the valve, and then just turn up the end of the valve. Okay, so just fold it up and then roll up the 260 into the rest of the valve. Okay, so that's what you've got. And when you get to this point, which is about an inch from the side of the balloon, fold the valve in half, okay, and pinch it together like that. Take hold of the tails of either your ribbon, your curling ribbon, or your 260 and tie in a knot, okay, and when you've tied once, tie a second time. Okay, and this just gives a nice finish to your balloon, just tied off nicely. Okay, so that's nice and neat. And this technique applies to whether you're tying helium balloons onto curling ribbon or whether you're preparing an airfill display and you're going to use these 260s to connect to the base. So using the tails from your foil balloon that we tied on, just pull those into the base and wrap around in a figure of 8 motion. Okay, so you're just going around and securing. Okay, and then do that with the one that's left. Second tail. Okay, and then do the same thing with the tail that's left. Just wrapping round in a figure of 8. And that's going to draw that foil to the base really well. Next, take a couple of 260s in a colour that matches your foil balloons and just remove the air from them and tie a knot at the end. So you're just taking hold of the tip end and pulling the 260 through your fingers, and then at the end just tying a knot, okay? So you've got a flat ribbon. And then take those 260s and just tie them together. Take a third 260 and do the same. And tie that onto your other two 260s. So we're creating a long ribbon. Take that 260, pass it through the centre of your 6 and tie in position. I'm just tying the second time for good measure. Okay, so that's just going to help hold those two numbers together. I've air inflated a foil star, which I've tied in exactly the same way as the foil numbers. Take the tails from the 260 and I'm going to just tie those in, wrap those in here and secure at the back. This has a little bit of give here. And I'm going to use this star to support the numbers. I'm just taking a little piece of 160, pinching hold of the end of the star, the tip here, and I'm just going to wrap this 160 around that tip a couple of times. And then just tie together a couple of knots. I can now use that little bit of 160 just to tie onto the 260 tail here. And in so doing, I'm lending support to the number 6. Take a 260 chrome fully inflated and pass it through the numbers, okay? Bring it round to the front, and then I'm just going to twist off a bubble here, and I'm going to wrap the end, this 260 here, and I'm going to tie that nozzle into that bubble just to make sure it doesn't come undone. I've got quite a few balloons to inflate. And before I start, there are a couple of things that I do. I get a bag to put the balloons in once inflated, and I get one of my sand weights, and I just position the bag over the end of my table, and I just put the sand weight there so I can just send everything into the bag once I've inflated. And I also have my quick cutter on my utility belt, and that's so I can easily remove the nozzles. I'm inflating a mix of 5-inch rounds. I've got rosewood, I've got pink, I've got reflex pink, and I've got rose gold and ordinary rose gold. So chrome rose gold and, sorry, reflex rose gold and ordinary rose gold. If that makes sense. I'm taking my cluster of 11-inch rounds and just wrapping the 260 in. If you feel you want to tie the end in, then feel free to. And I'm just going to position this one here and attach another cluster of 3 onto the other end, which I'm going to put at the back. So I want this to go here, so going under there, positioned here, give a bit of support, to the 0. I'm wrapping, pulling that 260 in, wrapping it around a couple of times. And then I'm putting my other cluster here, and don't worry that everything's moving around, because it does at this stage. That's why we're putting some of these extra clusters in to fill out the design and also to help position things. And then take those balloons that we inflated, the 5-inch rounds, just connect them to a 260, and you want to pull them into the design. Okay, so with this one I'm going to underneath. Just pull that into the design wherever you think it's needed. And then use the other end to connect another set of balloons. I'm using a 160 and I've snipped off the tip end, and I'm just going to take hold of this attachment point. I'm not going through the hole because I find those can be quite weak, easy to tear through, and I'm just wrapping this 160 around that connection point there. Okay, and when I've wrapped around a few times, as you would if you were tying a deco bubble, when you wrapped it around a few times, tie a knot. Easier said than done when you're holding on to things. Okay, got it. And pull that knot tight. Okay, and once you've tied that once, tie a second time. Okay, so you've got a connection point here. I just need to extend this connection point, so I'm just going to tie another 160 here. I'm tying the nozzle ends together, so that knot should be fairly secure. And the reason I didn't tie them together in the beginning is because having something that long can be very unwieldy. It's tricky enough tying these on without having the extra length, so that's why I do it that way. And then I've air filled this heart balloon with the hole in the middle, and tied the tails here, and I'm just going to take this 160 up through the centre of the heart and tie the ends together at the back here. Okay, this is going to flop all over the place until we do a few more bits with it. Okay, so I'm going to create another attachment point here. I've got a little scrap of, well, quite a long piece actually, of 160 gold with the tip cut off. I'm just going to pinch hold of this corner here on the 60 and wrap that 160 around that corner. It would be just lovely if there was an attachment point here already, but there isn't, so I have to make one. One of the things about the designs I do is I tend to, well, I rarely make the same thing twice, and even where I do, I'll make them just slightly different. And so, you know, with each build, I'm working out where the attachment point needs to go. I'll have a design in mind, and you know, but I'm working out as I'm building where the attachment points need to be. Then I'm going to tie the tails from here to the tails from the attachment point here. So I don't want to pull them too tightly. I still want there to be a little bit of play. And then we're going to firm up around here by padding this area out with the duplets and the 5-inch rounds. And I'm going to leave these just for the moment. I don't cut off the attachment points until the design has been completed and I know I'm not going to need them. So that's when I run round sticking tabs down and cutting off these tails. Those of you who watch my videos know I go to considerable lengths to disguise and hide the barcodes because they just spoil the design. So I've actually got a Posca pen here in pink, and I'm going to colour this in. That just disguises it a little bit. Once that's dry, I will cover that with some balloons. As always, when I put the display on the floor, I put it in one of these large decor bags, and that is to protect it from the floor of the carpet fibres, and to keep it clean. So that's my tip for when you're working on the floor. And I'm just going to carry on adding more duplets and clusters of 3, and I have inflated quite a few more balloons. Taking a couple of duplets, and I'm just going to wrap them directly onto this attachment point here. So I'm just wrapping them around until I can't hold on to this attachment point any longer. And the attachment points that I haven't used, like this one, I'm just using some clear tape to stick those back, just out of sight. This one here. So, no glue, completely air-filled, and to give you an idea of height, I'm 5'9", so this is about 6 feet tall by my reckoning. I'll see you again in the next video.